What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Guys, it's been way too long since I last uploaded. I think it's been almost 3 months since my last video. I've definitely missed making content for you guys, and I really wanted to, but life got busier. I was wrapping up school, getting to the end, and I wasn't able to upload as much as I want to, but we are finally back, and what better way to be back making content than making playoff content, specifically with the NFL playoffs. It's that time of year. Guys, we are officially in January, going into the second weekend of January, which means it's almost time for Super Wild Card weekend and the playoffs to get underway. So we're going to do what we do every single year when it comes to the playoffs, and that is make our full NFL playoff bracket. I'm usually quite awful at these. I'm like second percentile at best, and that's pushing it. So hopefully this year we're due for some positive regression, but theoretically it's not the best year for that because this year's been absolutely crazy. The 2023 season has shown basically zero consistency whatsoever, but that's what's going to make the playoffs fun, and that's what makes sports fun partially because we just don't know what's going to happen. So maybe this year I strike gold and get a perfect playoff bracket, or at least one that you might not laugh in my face after seeing it played back maybe when the playoffs are over, because usually I have laughable brackets, but regardless, I have a lot of fun with them. So let's get underway, guys, with our full 2023 to 2024. Now that we're in 2024, but it's the 2023 season, let's get into our full playoff bracket, which will start this Saturday. We're making this on a Tuesday. Comment your opinions. Definitely let me know what you think will happen in each game. Let me know your bracket in the comments. Without further ado, guys, let's get into it. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start chronologically with the first game. I'm going to start with the Browns and Texans. This is the first game on Saturday, first game of the Super Wild Card weekend, the first weekend of the incredible NFL playoffs. So, the Cleveland Browns or the Houston Texans? The Browns are the 5 seed, Texans are the 6, or sorry, the 4. Sorry, Texans are at home, they're the 4 seed. Wow, both these teams have been quite the incredible stories. First and foremost, let's start with the home team, the Houston Texans, with a rookie quarterback and a rookie coach against all odds, won the AFC South, won 10 games and earned a first-round home playoff game. Now, this one hurts because, as you might know, I am a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and they basically did what we did last year, which was come back improbably and win the AFC South. This year, the Jags did the opposite of what they did last year. They absolutely collapsed from an 8-3 record and went to 9-8, lost to the Titans pathetically and missed the playoffs. But this isn't about the Jags. I'm sorry, guys. Let's stay objective. Lots of credit to the Texans. This is going to be fun. This high-octane offense gets a home playoff game against suddenly a lethal passing attack of the Cleveland Browns, led by Joe Flacco, who could be CJ Stroud's father, because despite being 39 and not on a team for most of this year, the Browns picked him up in the latter third of the season, and he's just airing it out. He's been one of the best statistically passing quarterbacks since he's been the starter of the Browns. They lost their last game of the season, but that didn't matter because they started Jeff Driscoll. They didn't start Joe Flacco. So two teams riding hot. This I expect to be a shootout, just like it was 3 weeks ago when these two teams played in Houston, like they will again. So the question is, am I going to go with the veteran QB Joe Flacco or CJ Stroud? Do I go with the young team, the young, exciting Texans team against a mature Myles Garrett-led defense of the Browns, mature offense led by their new leader in Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper and all these guys having great seasons? Who do I go with? I'm going to go with the experience of the Browns in what I expect to be a high-scoring, probably, game, because the Texans defense isn't too good, too consistent at least. Sometimes they don't show up, but I could see it being a little lower scoring if the Browns utilize their defense. But again, both quarterbacks could definitely make this a shootout, and this first game of the playoffs will be very exciting, which moves us on to the Dolphins and Chiefs in a 6-3 matchup. You know, at the beginning of this year, if you told me this would be a playoff game, I would expect a thrilling one, probably a shootout between Tua Tagovailoa and Patrick Mahomes. But this year, These two teams, at least at this moment, are limping into the playoffs metaphorically because neither of them are playing well, and the Dolphins actually literally are limping into the playoffs because they have like half their defense injured. But the Chiefs, speaking of defense, they've been more of a defensive team this year. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and don't even remind me of the Chiefs receiving core. We all know what the Chiefs receiving core has done or has not done this year. So the Chiefs have struggled this year. Going into the playoffs, especially offensively, but they're at Arrowhead. We know the Dolphins are like 80% chance they're a fraud because they cannot win a road game, especially not against teams that are good, and this is what is the situation currently. They're facing a still good Kansas City Chiefs team with the best quarterback in the sport still. Probably the greatest tight end of all time, according to me. And it's at Arrowhead. The Dolphins can't win on the road. They play way, way, way better at Miami, which they just lost the AFC East title to. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I don't think the Dolphins have proven they can win a road playoff game in Arrowhead Stadium, which will still be rocking despite the Chiefs not being their normal explosive selves this year. I would never count out Patrick Mahomes on at least winning one playoff game, or probably just winning the whole thing because they still have a chance, because it's Patrick Mahomes. Anyway, so I'm going with the Chiefs. Then we have the Steelers and Bills in the 2-7 matchup. Now, the Steelers got into the playoffs by virtue of winning 3 in a row with Mason Rudolph, who's been a great story, and they figured it out offensively, at least a little bit more. They have 2 really good, solid running backs in Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Mike Tomlin once again found a way to have this team not only not have a losing season for the first time in his tenure, but they actually have a 10-7 winning record. And with the Jags losing, here we go again. Hang on. Last time I mentioned them. Probably, very likely. The Steelers get in as the 7th seed. The only problem is they're playing the Bills in Buffalo, an explosive team that just won 5 games in a row and is riding really hot with, despite Josh Allen's turnovers, they're riding hot. They get a top 2 seed, winning 5 in a row at home with Bills Mafia, and Josh Allen's still playing very well. They just stole the AFC East title from the Dolphins. I'm going to absolutely go with the Bills. I think they're -10, probably, I would guess, the biggest favorite of the first wild card weekend this weekend, especially with the Steelers not having TJ Watt, which is just the most he's their best player, obviously. So just not having the most important piece to the entire team in all likelihood is going to give the Steelers even less of a chance. I wouldn't have gone with the Steelers anyway, almost definitely not. But still, I think it'll be relatively close because the Steelers find a way to keep games close, but the Bills will be too much for the Steelers, so I'm going to go with the 2-seed Bills to defend their home field and win in the first round. Okay, so we're going to move on to the NFC now. We're going to start with the 4-5 matchup, which is the last matchup of the weekend on Monday night. It's going to be the Buccaneers and the Eagles in the 4 versus 5 in Tampa Bay. Despite the Bucs only having 9 wins this year, Baker Mayfield and company found a way to win what was quite a horrid division most of the year. They're going to be facing the Eagles, who are literally and figuratively limping into the playoffs, playing their worst football of the year, lost 5 out of 6 games with the 1 win coming at home against the Giants, and then they just lost to the Giants in embarrassing fashion this last week. And then 2 weeks ago, lost to the Cardinals at home, which basically took away any great chance they had at winning their division. An absolute collapse by the Eagles, but thanks to their 10-1 start, here they are still as a 5 seed in the playoffs with an 11-6 final record. Guys, I think the Eagles are favored, but I'm going to go with the Bucs because the last thing you want in picking a team to win a playoff game is if they're not playing well at all. If you're playing your worst football at the end of the year, chances are you're not going to go far. I just do not like what I'm seeing from the Eagles at all. So I'm going to go with what I think is a little bit underrated of a Buccaneers offense, even though last week only scoring 9 points against the Panthers, albeit in a winning 9-0 shutout effort, is probably not that impressive. But I still think Baker Mayfield, I got to give him credit. He's had a very solid year. He was the best QB in the division, and they're riding a lot more hot than the Eagles are. And let's not mention, we're going to mention them, but we shouldn't, the Eagles' defense, especially their secondary, which has been very torchable this year. And the Bucs still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and a very solid Baker Mayfield this season throwing to them. It might be an ugly I don't know what to expect from this one. Could go either way, but I think the Bucs are riding more hot, and because of that, they'll take that momentum and beat the Eagles, who probably have the least amount of momentum of any playoff team right now. So I'm going with the Bucks in what I think would be a slight upset at home in Tampa Baker now. It used to be Tampa Bay, but especially if Baker wins this game and maybe the Super Bowl. If he wins the Super Bowl, it'll definitely be Tampa Baker, but let's pump the brakes just a little bit before we get there. Next game, the next game we're going to pick, I think, guys, this is the best game of the whole weekend. Rams and Lions, 6 versus 3. The Lions, first time back in the playoffs in 8 years or 7 years, and the first time they won their division in like over 30 years. Good for Jared Goff and the Lions. They had a very good year, lived up to the offseason hype as a playoff team. And here they are hosting a playoff game against the Rams. Obviously, we know the storyline with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford both playing their former teams. These guys were traded for each other. We have Dan Campbell versus Sean McVay in a very interesting coaching matchup. This is going to be a really exciting game. The Rams, nobody thought they'd make the playoffs. Nobody thought the Rams would make the playoffs this year. They were expected to have one of the worst defenses, maybe one of the worst overall teams, but I think Sean McVay put on an absolute masterclass, especially at the end of this season with the Rams winning, I believe, 4 in a row to make the playoffs, culminating in a win at San Francisco last week, even though, they didn't have Brock Purdy or their entire starters, they rested their team. But the Rams are riding hot. I really like that, and I think Sean McVay, in what will be a close game, kind of a toss-up, I'm going to go with the experience in the coaching department. I think Sean McVay is going to lead the Rams to a win because he's going to out-coach Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell is a little too bold at sometimes. Like, this guy sometimes, I don't know what this guy's thinking. I mean, going for 2 on the 7-yard line of the Cowboys. I know the whole reporting situation, the bad call in that game against the Cowboys, but still, Dan Campbell can win you some games, but he can also lose you some games. I trust the Super Bowl winning experience of Sean McVay. I trust Matthew Stafford's experience over Jared Goff and Dan Campbell and the Lions. If the Lions are out of their script, if they can't establish the run, can't get a lead going early, that spells trouble for them. I think Sean McVay knows that. I'm going with the Rams to win in Detroit. So guys, we're going to move on to our final game of the first round. It's going to be Packers and Cowboys, a classic matchup between two historic franchises. The Cowboys have a 2 seed playing pretty well right now, even though they've had shaky moments this season. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb both had incredible career seasons, in my opinion, and now they're playing a young and exciting Packers team that has owned the Cowboys. Of course, with Aaron Rodgers, we don't know how they do with Jordan Love against the Cowboys, but just for the Packers to make the playoffs this year with a super young and exciting team with a really bright future, great coaching job from Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love looks like, it might be early and bold, but maybe the 3rd straight Hall of Fame starting QB for the Packers. But in what I think will still be a close and exciting game because the Cowboys just find a way, I guess, to maybe underperform and make some of these games that they should win a little closer. I still think the Cowboys win this game at home. I thought about picking the Packers, but I just don't know if they're going to have enough firepower in Jerry World in Dallas, where the Cowboys just don't lose. They could basically beat anyone at home. I still think their lack of experience and lack of firepower against a home team Cowboys is gonna be the reason they don't win. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, but guys, don't count out the Packers on making this a close game or even winning. I wouldn't be that shocked. I think the Packers, they're playing with house money just to make the playoffs was awesome. They don't really have expectations. They're just a young, fun team that can throw it against a Cowboys secondary that isn't that great or hasn't been great at a lot of points this year, but I think the Cowboys offense will be too much for the Packers defense, which has struggled definitely this year at points. So guys, we're into the divisional round. So this means we were going to have, according to my bracket, a Ravens-Browns divisional round, and then we're going to have a Bills-Chiefs divisional round in the AFC, which would be insane. We get an AFC North matchup, a great matchup between two teams that went at it this year, especially in their last matchup, and then we get Chiefs and Bills in another rematch between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. We're going to start with Ravens and Browns. Lamar locked up the MVP this year. I think it's basically, there's no doubt anymore, he's going to win the MVP. They're going to face the Browns, who, if they win this game, they're riding hot and would continue to ride hot. And they did win in Baltimore a few weeks ago with Deshaun Watson, or not a few weeks, a little more than a few weeks ago with Deshaun Watson, though. This was pre-Joe Flacco era in for Cleveland, but I think this time around the Ravens will win a close game. I just don't see the Ravens losing 2 in a row at home to the Browns. I think the Ravens are the best team overall in the NFL because of their all-around incredible defense, and of course they're going to have the MVP in Lamar Jackson at QB, and I think this is a more mature Lamar Jackson that can come from behind compared to when the Ravens were the number 1 seed back in 2019. They lost their first game to the Titans at home. I think because Lamar's probably passing it, especially downfield, better than he ever has, I don't think that's as much of a problem. Still want to see Lamar prove himself in the playoffs, but I don't see the Browns beating them twice, even though it would be a close game, and I believe they can. I'm just not going to pick it. I think the Ravens are too good and slightly better than the Browns. They will be slightly better in this game. At least, I think this time Lamar Jackson will play well in the playoffs, and I think he's matured. I think the Ravens will win this game. We move on to Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, part 3 in the playoffs. First time in the AFC Championship in 2020. Patrick Mahomes won. Then in an all-time game in 2021, Patrick Mahomes won, both times in Arrowhead, and that game in overtime, we all knew Josh Allen put on an absolute clinic against, both of them were great. So this could be setting up to be another classic matchup. It's always must-see TV when these two play each other, but this time the difference is this is in Orchard Park, this is in Buffalo. Josh Allen gets to be at home for this one, and I think the Bills are playing a lot better than the Chiefs, and I think it's their time in another potentially classic game. I'm going to go with the Bills to win, and that home field advantage will pay huge dividends for them. The Bills move on to the AFC Championship, and I have a Ravens-Bills 1-2 AFC title, which we will get back to. Now to the NFC, we're going to have 49ers versus Rams. Then we're going to have Cowboys and Buccaneers. We're going to start with 49ers and Rams, rematch of the NFC Championship 2 years ago. McVay versus Shanahan, always a great matchup. They split it 1-1 this year, even though the second time, this last week, technically doesn't count. They are 1-1 against each other. Man, I just think that the 49ers are great. They're so great. They've destroyed every team they've beaten this year. They've had a few shaky moments, but not too many weaknesses. The only kind of shaky game with their full squad was when they lost to the Ravens on Christmas. I think the 49ers are the best overall team in the NFC, but it would be kind of boring if I go with both number ones to win. And I feel like a lot of years, one of the two number ones for some reason loses their divisional round game. If you just look at previous brackets, I feel like that happens in at least one of the conferences. I don't know why, but I believe in McVay. I believe in the Rams. Here's my biggest upset so far. Rams go into Levi Stadium. If it is still Levi Stadium, I think it is. Yeah, the Rams go into Levi Stadium and they beat the 49ers, their division rival. They're going to beat him and move on to the NFC Championship game. The Rams are hot at the right time. Matthew Stafford has had a really nice comeback year. Puka Nacua, who was this guy coming into the draft, one of the, the best rookie wide receiver season ever. And then Kyren Williams, an amazing surprise as well. They just found a way, the Rams did, to get hot at the right time. And I think they're going to continue that momentum. I believe they get to the NFC Championship. So then we have Cowboys and Buccaneers. It's been a great run for Baker Mayfield, yet if they get to the divisional round, but I just don't see them going into Jerry World and beating the Cowboys. The Cowboys would get a pretty good matchup if they end up avoiding the Lions or the Eagles in the second round. I think the Cowboys would match up fine against the Buccaneers. I don't see the Bucs going into Dallas and winning. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys to finally, even though a lot of times they've had chances, I think this time the Dallas Cowboys finally get to the NFC Championship game to face the Rams. So guys, this is my bracket. Final 4 teams. AFC, I'm going Ravens, Bills in the championship. NFC, I'm going with Cowboys and Rams. Let's start with the AFC. A great matchup. Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Two teams playing great football right now. Guys, I believe in Josh Allen. I believe it's their year. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this game and get to the Super Bowl. It's kind of, I don't have a great reason as to why I should doubt the Ravens. other than their own history and their own problems the last few years in the playoffs, not maybe having a couple disappointing years. But other than that, I just believe in the will of Josh Allen. I think if they get to the AFC Championship, if Josh Allen can defeat Patrick Mahomes, that'll just continue to add to the Bills' momentum. And I just like what Josh Allen does through the air still better than Lamar Jackson. I know Lamar's great, doesn't have nearly the turnovers, way more efficient a lot of times than Josh Allen, but I think Josh Allen has maybe one, or just has a ridiculous Hall of Fame all-time ceiling, and it just could be the Bills' year. I think they're due to have a year where they just ride it all the way to the Super Bowl, ride all their momentum to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills, the 2 seed, to win the AFC and get to Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. So who joins them? Who faces the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl? Guys, Rams, Cowboys, I know it's in Dallas, but I've already had the Rams come this far. I gotta go with the LA Rams to get to Super Bowl 58. I know my Super Bowl finals or my Super Bowl matchup is kind of weird, you know, Rams and Bills, a wild card team. They're gonna beat the 49ers, get all the way to the Super Bowl. Yes, they are. I believe in them. This is my Super Bowl 2 seed in the AFC, 6 seed in the NFC, 2 versus 6. Bills, Rams, we thought maybe this had the best chance of being the Super Bowl going into last year because those two teams played each other on the opening week or opening night, that first Thursday of the season last year, and we thought maybe that could be a preview of the Super Bowl last year, but I think this year that ends up being the Super Bowl. It's bold, I know, but I don't want to go 49ers Ravens. I don't want to go conventional, so I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to face the LA Rams. So who wins Super Bowl 58, though? There has to be a winner, obviously. Guys, I believe in them. For the first time in franchise history, exercising their previous 4 Super Bowl appearance demons, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to win their first franchise Super Bowl, guys. I think the Bills have gotten hot at the right time. They looked really shaky when they were 6-6, looked like they might miss the playoffs entirely. Questions about Josh Allen. There still are questions, but they solve them, and I love the will of the Bills. It doesn't always go their way, but they've started to establish the run a lot better with James Cook. He's had a breakout season. Josh Allen still has the receiving weapons. Dalton Kincaid's been a great rookie tight end for them. Now they have Dawson Knox back as well to complement him. Of course, Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Khalil Shakir has had a good year too. They just have all the weapons, and I think with their new offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, since they fired Ken Dorsey, they've just been rolling 5 in a row. I think they ride it and ride all that momentum and win the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. I think it's the Bills' year. So that's my bracket, guys. Definitely comment your opinions. Let me know. Regardless, guys, anything's possible, especially this year where so many teams have been up and down. We've thought this team was the best for a while. We thought some other team was the best. We thought certain teams had established themselves, proven themselves, then they would stumble, and then like just crazy things have happened this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if my picks are completely wrong as well, because really it could be a wild postseason. So I just can't wait to see how it unravels, how it ultimately all unfolds. So guys, definitely comment your opinions. Let me know. Like the video if you enjoyed. Can't wait for the playoffs to start in a few days, guys. Great being back making videos for you. Hopefully we can make them a lot more often, which I'm definitely planning to do. And guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one.